Okay, forget everything you think you know about ancient history for a second.
Uh-oh. Where are we going with this?
What if there are structures out there right now that simply shouldn't exist if humans only had, sticks and stones?
Okay, I'm listening. The classic impossible structures idea.
Exactly. Structures so bafflingly complex, some people are whispering about forgotten civilizations, advanced lost technology, or maybe even something else.
Right. They're really out there theories.
Like, what if science can't explain it? That's the rabbit hole we're peering into today, thanks to a stack of sources that landed on our desk.
Yeah, we've got some interesting online forum discussions, a Wikipedia entry on pseudo-archaeology, and some deeper analyses comparing alternative histories with the mainstream view.
Get ready, because our mission is to unpack what all these different perspectives say about these incredible mysteries, especially focusing on one location that keeps popping up. Japan! Welcome to the cool, weird, and possible.
It's true, though, that initial reaction when you see some of these ancient constructions, even just in photos, it can be sheer disbelief.
Totally.
The sources definitely highlight this perception that some structures feel fundamentally impossible given the standard picture of the tools and tech available thousands of years ago.
Right. I mean, you look at some of these sites and your brain just kind of short circuits. How?
Exactly. We're talking about moving massive stones, achieving incredible precision, building on a scale that just feels, well, beyond what simple tools should allow.
Our sources, like that one from Design Times, really capture this historical puzzle. They mention even early archaeologists were scratching their heads trying to figure out the labor and skill involved.
And it's precisely that gap, that how do they do that moment,
Hmm.
that often fuels the alternative theories. The Wikipedia entry on pseudo-archaeology touches on this.
So when the standard explanation doesn't immediately click,
The mind naturally wanders. You get suggestions of, alien intervention or maybe these highly advanced human civilizations that were just lost to time.
which perfectly pivots us to a really fascinating case study right there in the title of this deep dive, this idea of a pre-flood structure. And that immediately brings up the Yonaguni Monument off Japan's coast.
Exactly. This really intriguing underwater formation. People describe it as looking like terraced steps, almost like a submerged pyramid structure.
Underwater pyramid. Okay, yeah, that's got mystery written all over it.
And the debate over Yonaguni is intense across our sources. You see it boiling over in the Reddit discussions mentioned in Wikipedia.
The core question being,
Is this something carved by human hands ages ago? Maybe before the sea levels rose? Or is it just a really weird but purely natural rock formation?
okay, let's break it down. Arguments for man-made. What are the sources saying?
All right, well, people in those Reddit threads in that YouTube source are pretty convinced. They point to things like what they call straight cut edges.
Like, too clean, too geometric to be natural.
That's the claim. Right angles, features that look like steps. The YouTube video even says it doesn't look naturally formed at the slightest, and kind of defies modern logic if ancient people were supposedly primitive.
Hmm. Any comparisons?
Yes, some argue parts of it resemble ancient quarry work you see above ground in other parts of the world.
Okay, I can see the appeal of that argument, but what's the counter, its natural side?
The sources present that just as strongly. Critics, again in the Reddit threads, note that the natural rock formations on the nearby island also show similar sharp angles and straight breaks.
Ah, so maybe it's just how that particular type of rock fractures.
That's a key point they make. They argue these features aren't necessarily proof of carving, maybe just natural jointing patterns in the sandstone.
What about the steps?
They question the function. Like, if those are steps, are they actually sized or spaced in a way that makes sense for people to use? Plus, photos could be tricky, right? Angles, shadows.
Sure, you can make things look different depending on how you shoot them.
Exactly. One comment even floated the idea it might be something called columnar basalt that fell over, though the geology might not fit perfectly. Interestingly, that YouTube source tries to find a middle ground.
How so?
It calls Yonaguni a marvel of both natural formation and human endeavor, sort of suggesting maybe nature formed the base and humans modified it,
Yeah.
or maybe just acknowledging the ambiguity.
It definitely captures the imagination, though. Underwater, looks structured, it hits all those lost continent bugs.
Oh, absolutely. Alternative history circles, definitely connected to Japan's Atlantis, or, evidence of sophisticated Ice Age cultures before the seas rose.
Okay, so Yonaguni is this big question mark. But Japan has other amazing ancient sites, right? You mentioned another one.
Yes, And it provides a really useful contrast. The YouTube source talks about the Oya stone quarry.
Oh yeah, the one with those gigantic underground caves. The pictures are stunning, like something out of a fantasy epic.
They really are. Incredibly vast subterranean spaces carved out of this volcanic tough rock near Utsunomiya.
Okay, so what's the story there? Aliens. Lost tech.
Actually, no. And this is the critical point the YouTube source makes. Unlike Yonaguni, where the origin is the big debate, Oya is absolutely, unequivocally known to be human-made.
Ah, so we know people built it.
Yes. The wonder here, according to the source, is that it was created using what they call rudimentary tools and sheer human effort by people from that era.
Whoa. So the mystery isn't if humans built it, but how on earth they managed it with basic technology.
Precisely that. The source explicitly states that even today, replicating it remains a formidable challenge, even with modern machinery. Yet, people did it hundreds of years ago.
That's mind-boggling.
It really is. This site doesn't need theories of lost civilization. It's just a staggering testament to human perseverance, ingenuity, skill, and the power of organized labor using the tools they had.
What was it used for?
The source details its history initially for things like statues and religious structures. Later, it became super important for fire-resistant building materials, especially in big cities like Old Tokyo, because the stone has this unique property. It hardens over time after it's quarried.
That's a huge difference from Yonaguni then. One makes you ask, what is this? Did humans even make it?
And Oya stone makes you say, okay, humans definitely built this, but how? How did they possibly achieve something so massive with so little?
Right. It shows different kinds of ancient puzzles.
Exactly. As presented in the sources, these two Japanese examples really frame the debate well. Sometimes it's about the origin, other times it's just awe at human achievement against the odds.
And this isn't just a Japan thing. Our sources point to other sites globally that fuel these alternative ideas about super advanced ancient folks, like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. That one comes up constantly.
Yes, the Wikipedia and skeptic sources both dig into Göbekli Tepe, and what makes it so stunning is its age.
It's crazy old, right? Older than the pyramids.
Thousands of years older than Stonehenge, or the Egyptian pyramids, yeah. And its discovery, according to the skeptic source, really stirred the pot. Did it mean genuinely advanced people were around way earlier than we thought? Or does it just mean that hunter-gatherers were far more capable, more organized, and had more complex symbolic lives than archaeologists had previously assumed?
The skeptic source brings up Graham Hancock's theories here, doesn't it? Connecting Göbekli Tepe carvings to astronomy.
It does. And to his broader theory about a lost civilization surviving a cataclysm.
Right, the idea that maybe sites like this were built by survivors trying to preserve knowledge.
That's a key thread in many of these alternative narratives, as the skeptic source explains. Hancock suggests places like Göbekli Tepe might have been guided by remnants of an advanced Ice Age civilization trying to pass on what they knew after a catastrophe.
Okay, what other examples? Teotihuacan in Mexico gets mentioned in the Design Time source. Huge pyramids, complex city.
Teotihuacan is a great example cited there. It was once seen as potentially impossible or needing outside help because of its sheer scale. Early researchers struggled to explain how they built, say, the Pyramid of the Sun.
But now...
But the source clarifies that further research shows it was definitely human effort. They used specific engineering techniques, ramps, and crucially organized huge workforces, possibly including forced labor. The mystery shifted from who built it to how these people achieved such incredible social organization and engineering.
That sounds a bit like Çatalhöyük in Turkey, also in that Design Times piece. Oldest known city, built before metal tools, before widespread farming even. Its layout was weird, right? No streets.
Correct. Design Times notes Çatalhöyük's unique structure houses, packed together, people moving across rooftops, was initially baffling. But now it's understood in the context of their likely social structure, maybe more egalitarian, with rooftop access being normal.
So again, not impossible, just different. A mystery solved by understanding the culture, not invoking lost tech.
Pretty much. So you have these sites like Teotihuacan and Çatalhöyük, where the initial mystery seems largely resolved by mainstream archaeology explaining how humans did it.
But then you still have Yonaguni and Göbekli Tepe, which remain hotbeds of debate and central to those alternative stories.
And the sources mention others, too, that keep the debate going, like the Bimini Road in the Bahamas. Is it a natural rock formation or an ancient pavement? Both Wikipedia and Skeptic touch on that debate.
And the Nazca lines in Peru, those giant drawings in the desert. Design Times mentions the debated purpose astronomical calendar, ritual pathways. Still questions there.
They all contribute to this larger picture, feeding into questions about ancient human capabilities. Are we seeing lost knowledge or just ingenuity we haven't fully appreciated?
Okay, let's loop back to that pre-flood idea from the title. This connects to the possibility of a massive cataclysm, right? Like a flood that wiped the slate clean, leaving only scattered survivors with advanced knowledge.
The Reddit source directly explores this. One line of thought presented there is, if we find evidence of people who were way more developed than what we believed really early on, maybe they were survivors of a catastrophic event that flourished while most others perished.
And the fact that there are flood myths everywhere in cultures all over the globe, that's often used as evidence, isn't it? Like maybe they all remember a real shared disaster.
That comes up a lot. The Reddit source really dives into the Noah's flood story from the Bible, laying out a significant debate around it.
What are the main arguments against it being a literal global flood?
Well, the source outlines several criticisms discussed there. Logistical challenges, like fitting all the animal species on the ark pairs of everything. Clean animals sevenfold.
Plus getting kangaroos from Australia and penguins from Antarctica to the Middle East.
Exactly. And then caring for them all. But critically, the source also mentions the lack of geological evidence. There's just no single worldwide flood layer found in the Earth's strata that corresponds to such an event.
That Reddit thread also gets into some theological debates too, doesn't it? Like questioning God's plan if a flood was needed.
Yes, those discussions are present in the source material. But then, the source presents the counterargument. Maybe the event described wasn't global, but a massive local flood.
Ah, like a regional catastrophe that felt global to the people experiencing it.
Precisely. It points to the possibility of a major flood in Mesopotamia, around the Persian Gulf area, roughly matching some proposed timelines. It suggests earlier cultures there, like the Sumerians and Akkadians, recorded such an event, and the biblical story might be a later version.
Because to them, their known world was the whole world back then.
That's the interpretation offered. The source also notes that the Quran's account of the flood is described as localized and doesn't involve bringing animals onto the boat.
Okay, but then there's that really tricky math problem brought up in the Reddit source. Repopulating the entire planet from just Noah's family, 8 people.
Yeah, that generates a lot of debate in the source. It presents conflicting calculations and arguments. Some commenters raise serious biological and logistical hurdles.
Like what?
Well, the need for close interbreeding initially, the potential genetic problems, the historically high infant and child mortality rates, just the sheer improbability of exponential growth needed to get to large populations quickly enough for big projects like, say, the Tower of Babel or Egyptian pyramids, if you follow certain young Earth timelines.
How do you get enough people to build a pyramid just a few centuries after having only 8 survivors? That's a specific point raised, right?
It is. One comment specifically questions getting the estimated 15,000, 20,000 workers needed for a pyramid so soon. It sounds like a massive challenge within that specific framework.
But there's a counter-calculation mentioned too.
Yes. The source also includes an argument that, starting with 8 people, if you assume a population doubling rate of maybe every 150 years, which is presented as conservative by proponents, you could theoretically reach today's global population in about 4,500 years.
A time frame proponents might argue fits their model.
Correct. So the sources show this isn't settled even within those alternative frameworks. There is a vigorous debate about the feasibility of rapid repopulation after a bottleneck.
So wrapping up the flood part, the sources show big challenges for a literal global biblical flood from science and logistics, but the idea of major local floods being recorded and the widespread nature of flood myths generally keeps the catastrophe idea alive in these discussions.
And it's not just floods. Other cataclysms get discussed, like Graham Hancock's hypothesis, mentioned again in the Skeptic source, about comet impacts around 12,800 years ago, causing the Younger Dryas climate chaos and wiping out that hypothesized Ice Age civilization.
Okay, so we've got the mysterious structures, the potential catastrophes, the flood debates. How does mainstream academic archaeology view all this alternative stuff? The pseudo-archaeology, as our Wikipedia source labels it.
That Wikipedia entry lays it out pretty clearly. It defines pseudo-archaeology as interpretations of the past that basically reject or ignore the accepted scientific methods of archaeology.
How so?
They often rely on sensational claims, misuse or misrepresent evidence, and position themselves as fighting against the establishment.
So it's like having a jigsaw puzzle, but instead of looking at how the pieces fit, you decide what the picture should be first, then grab any piece that vaguely looks right and ignore the ones that don't.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually. The critiques from academic archaeologists, highlighted in the Wikipedia and skeptic sources, point to a lack of scientific rigor.
What kind of practices?
Things like anomaly hunting, focusing only on the few things science doesn't currently have a perfect explanation for, instead of looking at the bulk of the evidence. Cherry-picking data that fits your theory, confirmation bias, seeing what you want to see in the evidence.
And the skeptic source mentioned the argument from ignorance.
Yes, exactly. The flawed logic that says, if mainstream science can't explain X right now, then my wild theory Y must be true. Academic archaeology rejects that. A gap in current knowledge doesn't automatically validate any random hypothesis.
The skeptic source also had that phrase, bigotry of low expectations.
Yes, warning against underestimating what ancient people could achieve. Critics argue that many seemingly impossible structures can be explained by incredible human ingenuity, planning, organization, and just sheer persistent effort over long periods, not necessarily lost super tech.
They also warn against reading modern ideas back into the past, right? Like seeing modern astronomy in ancient symbols without solid proof.
Right, avoiding presentism, as the skeptic source calls it, regarding interpretations of places like Göbekli Tepe.
It sounds like a fundamental clash in how evidence is even approached.
It really is. The Wikipedia source quotes archaeologists expressing frustration, saying it's hard to even have a productive debate because pseudo-archaeology often operates outside the rules of evidence-based reasoning and testable hypotheses. The skeptic source echoes that difficulty.
So while the alternative theories point to Yonaguni's mystery or the sheer number of flood myths as potential proof of a hidden history,
Mainstream archaeology, as seen in sources like Design Times, often provides detailed, plausible explanations for many sites once considered impossible, grounding them in human capabilities, social structures, and known technological development.
and how do academics view flood myths generally?
As discussed in the Reddit and skeptic sources, the academic view leans towards seeing them as stemming from real, local historical events like the Mesopotamian floods, which have archaeological backing, or as powerful cultural stories, theological metaphors, or even philosophical tools.
Like Plato's Atlantis.
Exactly. The skeptic source argues Plato likely used the Atlantis story as a philosophical allegory, not as literal history.
Wow. Okay, so looking across all these sources, it's this incredible landscape of history and mystery. You've got structures and stories that just grab you. They challenge our timelines. They spark these really dramatic, compelling theories about lost worlds and global resets.
And running parallel, you have the methodical, often painstaking work of scientific archaeology, building its picture of the past piece by piece through evidence, testing, peer review, and often arriving at very different, more grounded answers for those same puzzles.
It's truly fascinating how the same thing, a carved stone, an old building, a myth handed down, can be seen in such radically different ways, just depending on the lens you use. We've tried our best here to just lay out what these different sources are saying, show you those different lenses.
Yeah, understanding humanity's deep past is definitely not simple. It's complex, it's full of ongoing debate, there are multiple ways to weigh the evidence, and that line between an intriguing possibility and established historical fact is always being probed and sometimes redrawn. So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. Considering all these debates we've explored today, from the still argued over rocks of Yonaguni versus the undeniable human achievement of Oya Stone, the layers of meaning in flood stories, the arguments over population math, and these fundamental clashes between alternative history and mainstream science, just how solid is our standard picture of humanity's earliest chapters? What significant mysteries might genuinely still be out there, hiding in plain sight or buried underground, just waiting for new evidence, or maybe even just a different way of looking that could unlock them and perhaps really reshape how we see our own story?